topics. So we'll be talking about amino acids at the origin of life on Earth and kind of which ones were there.
Okay, so we just wanted to give a brief introduction to what phylogenetics is, in case any of you are unfamiliar with it. So what we do is we take DNA sequence data, and it can be like nucleotide data or amino acid data or codon data. We specifically work with amino acid data. And we use these sequences to estimate a phylogenetic tree. So our research, we used Bayesian techniques, and we assumed that all trees in the tree space were equally likely for our prior. And then, so we start with an initial tree and then make changes to the tree to move through the tree space and investigate different trees. And for each of those trees, we calculate the probability of that tree given the data that we have. So this is an example phylogenetic tree. And just, no, go back, sorry. Okay, so this point right up there, that's what we call the root node, and it's like the last common ancestor of all the species that we have in the tree. And so when we're making these trees, we have to look at a couple of different things. So the first thing is topology, and so that refers to like the placement of where like the most similar organisms are. So you can see the two at the bottom, the coyote and wolf, are more closely related than, say, like to the otter that's above them. And then the other thing we have to look at is the branch lengths, and that is like where the species split off into their own, into different species.
So a lot of what we looked at, or the bulk of what we looked at for this project had to do with how old certain amino acids were. And so some of the literature on this starts with Stanley Miller in the 1980s, and he did these sparking experiments, or these like supposedly like in these prebiotic conditions, or conditions that, you know, to his best of his knowledge, were prebiotic because no one was there. And so the 10 amino acids that he created are those 10 that are listed there in that scenario, in that environment. And so so in that respect, these could be considered the 10 oldest amino acids, or maybe the 10 prebiotic amino acids in some respects. And then Trifonov in 2009 compiled a bunch of data and a bunch of different studies and came up with kind of a consensus ordering, chronological ordering of the 20 amino acids. So what he said was that he thought glycine was the first one to come around, and then alanine came around, and so on, all through to 20 of them until we get the tryptophan, which is the last one. And so this is related to like which ones are the most stable or which ones are the simplest, like at the beginning, and then the more complicated ones at the end. And then in 2014, we have this paper by Longo and Blaber where they look at multiple lines of evidence, such as like meteorite data and stuff like that, and they come up with 10 consensus prebiotic amino acids, which match the ones that Miller found. So these are what we use kind of when we're talking about old amino acids, or